There are moments when a single choice reveals more about you than years of self-analysis. Not because the choice is clever, rational, or well thought out, but because it happens before the mind steps in to organize, justify, or explain. Before language, before logic, before identity. Right now, you are standing in front of one of those moments. In front of you, there are four wolves. They are not here as aesthetic images, nor as decorative symbols. Each one carries a distinct psychological force, a specific inner movement that speaks directly to the part of you that does not usually express itself in words. Before your mind begins to search for meaning, color, personality traits, or personal history, pause. Breathe. Let your eyes rest on them for a few seconds. Notice which wolf pulls your attention without effort. Curiosity, calm, discomfort, silent attraction, or even rejection. Whatever arises, let it arise. That reaction is essential. Do not analyze it. Do not compare. Do not justify it. The moment you start explaining is the moment you move away from the truth this experience is designed to reveal. Long before you learned how to describe yourself, your inner world already knew how to recognize what resonates with it. The unconscious does not communicate through clear sentences. It speaks through images, sensations, impulses. It does not argue, it attracts. This is why the choice you are making now is not random. Whether you are aware of it or not, it reflects a dominant psychological force operating in your life at this very moment. As you observe the wolves, notice your internal responses. Perhaps you feel a quiet familiarity, perhaps tension, perhaps a subtle resistance. Do not correct any of it. In depth psychology, even resistance carries meaning. Sometimes we are not drawn to what is comfortable, but to what is necessary. This experiment works precisely because it bypasses rational thinking and reaches a deeper layer of the psyche, the layer where instincts live, where unspoken fears settle, where desires are formed before being censored, and where the forces that shape your daily decisions quietly operate. Many people spend their entire lives trying to understand themselves by thinking more, reading more, questioning more. Yet some of the most accurate insights emerge when we do the opposite, when we allow the unconscious to speak first. Now, choose. Do not announce it. Do not explain it. Simply acknowledge, internally, which wolf called you. Hold that image for a moment. Each wolf represents a different way of relating to life, to emotion, to inner power, and to identity. No choice is better or worse. Each one reveals a psychological strategy the mind has developed to survive, adapt, and grow. This is not a test to predict your future. It is not a label. It is an invitation to recognize which part of you is asking for attention right now. If the first wolf was the one that immediately drew you in, there is within you a strong relationship with instinct. Not instinct in the crude or uncontrolled sense it is often misunderstood as, but instinct as deep intelligence. The ability to feel before explaining, to sense before structuring, to know without immediately knowing why. This wolf symbolizes a psyche that responds quickly to life. Emotions move through you with intensity. Joy, anger, desire, fear, enthusiasm, frustration. Nothing stays neutral for long. People aligned with this wolf often trust their intuition, even when they cannot rationally justify their decisions. The body knows. Emotion signals. The mind follows later, trying to keep up. There is courage in this, even if it is rarely acknowledged. In a world that prizes emotional control and constant composure, feeling deeply is often labeled as excess, too intense, too sensitive, too reactive. What is rarely said is that this intensity is also vitality. When instinct is alive, life does not become mechanical. The challenge appears when this force begins to act alone, when every emotion turns into immediate action, when there is no space between feeling and responding. At that point, instinct stops being guidance and becomes weight. Emotional exhaustion, repeated conflicts, and regret tend to grow there. Growth in this case does not require extinguishing the fire. It requires learning how to direct it. As you sit with this, resist the urge to categorize yourself. This is not about fixing who you are. It is about listening. In the next part, we will explore the psychological meaning of the second wolf, a force that operates in a very different way, yet carries its own form of power and its own shadow. For now, stay with what surfaced. If this resonated with you, write in the comments, "I trust what I feel." And if you want to continue this journey deeper into your own inner patterns, subscribe. Some insights only reveal themselves when you stay long enough to listen. If the second wolf was the one that quietly held your attention, your inner world operates in a very different way. This is not a force that rushes toward life. It does not react first and think later. It observes. It waits. It listens. While others move, you perceive. While others speak, you notice what remains unsaid. This wolf represents a psyche that values depth over speed and awareness over display. You are not detached from emotion. You are selective with it. Your sensitivity does not announce itself loudly. It hides in nuance, in tone, in silence, in the subtle shifts of energy that many people overlook. Silence for you is not emptiness. It is a familiar territory, a place where meaning gathers before it is spoken. You likely learned early that not every feeling needs to be exposed in order to survive, and so you developed an inner landscape that is rich, reflective, and Many mistake this for coldness or distance. In reality, it is a sophisticated form of emotional intelligence. You do not rush to react because you sense that reactions can distort truth. You prefer to understand first, to let things settle, to allow clarity to form naturally. This wolf carries restraint, discernment, and psychological patience. But every strength carries a cost when taken too far. What is not expressed does not disappear. It accumulates. Over time, this can show up as unexplained fatigue, a sense of being present yet absent, a quiet loneliness even when surrounded by people. You may find yourself deeply connected to your inner world, yet strangely unseen by others. Not because they do not care, but because you have not allowed them access. This wolf teaches you that depth without expression becomes isolation. Your growth does not require becoming louder, more exposed, or more performative. It requires selective expression. Not everyone needs to enter your inner world, but someone does. There is a difference between privacy and invisibility. The moment you begin to share parts of what you hold in safe and intentional ways, the weight starts to lift. If you recognize yourself here, the question is not, "Why do I feel so much?" but, "With whom can I share what I feel?" Now, if the third wolf was the one that stirred something in you, your psyche responds to movement. You feel alive in transition. Stillness, when prolonged, drains you. Long routines feel heavy. Stagnation creates inner tension. Even when things look fine on the surface, you sense when a cycle has ended. Change for you is not escape. It is psychological necessity. You are drawn to new paths, new versions of yourself, new challenges. You do not only ask, "Who am I?" but "Who am I becoming?" Reinvention comes naturally to you. You adapt. You transform. You move forward while others remain attached to what once worked. This wolf represents evolution, flexibility, and forward momentum. Yet here too there is a shadow. Constant movement can sometimes conceal the fear of staying, of facing emotions that require stillness rather than action. Not all transformation happens through speed. Some require pause. Some require remaining in one place long enough to feel what you would rather outgrow quickly. The lesson of this wolf is discernment. To know the difference between growth and restlessness, between expansion and avoidance. Changing because you are growing is not the same as changing because you are running. As you reflect on this, notice how none of these forces exist in isolation. They are not labels. They are movements within you. One may be louder right now, but the others are not absent. According to Alan Watts, much of human suffering comes not from feeling too much or too little, but from resisting the natural flow of what is already present. This experiment is not asking you to define yourself. It is asking you to notice where your energy is concentrated at this moment in your life. Awareness does not demand immediate change. It creates space, and in that space something begins to reorganize quietly. Stay with what you recognized. If this part resonated, write in the comments, "I am allowed to move and to pause." And if you feel that these reflections are touching something real within you, subscribe. This process unfolds layer by layer, not all at once. And then there is the fourth wolf. This is the one many people sense but hesitate to choose, not because it lacks strength, but because it carries what has been misunderstood, hidden, or quietly suppressed over time. This wolf represents the shadow, not as something dark or negative, but as unrecognized potential. The parts of you that did not fit, the impulses that were softened to maintain acceptance, the boundaries that were never fully expressed, the desires that felt too intense, too inconvenient, or too disruptive for the environment you were in. Those drawn to this wolf often feel different without knowing exactly why. From an early age, you may have learned to adapt, to read the room, to shape yourself in ways that preserved harmony or safety. You became skilled at survival. What was rarely taught is that survival and self-erasure are not the same thing. What goes underground does not vanish. It waits. The shadow does not disappear because it is ignored. It finds other ways to speak, through self-sabotage, through repeated emotional patterns, through strong reactions to certain people that seem disproportionate on the surface. Often, what irritates or disturbs you in others has little to do with them. It points to something in you that is asking to be integrated rather than denied. This wolf carries raw energy, assertiveness that was never trained, creativity that was never given space, anger that was never allowed to be cleanly expressed, sensitivity that was never protected, power that was postponed. When these forces remain unacknowledged, they do not become smaller, they become distorted. Choosing this wolf does not mean you are broken. It means there is something in you ready to be reclaimed. Integration does not mean acting out every impulse or indulging every desire. It means bringing what was unconscious into awareness, so it no longer controls you from the shadows. When you walk beside this wolf, instead of fighting it, its energy becomes available. Boundaries strengthen. Self-respect stabilizes. Your presence gains weight without aggression. Now notice something important. None of these wolves exist alone. You are not instinct only. You are not silence only. You are not movement only. You are not shadow only. Each wolf represents a psychological force that can either dominate or cooperate. Problems arise not because one exists, but because one overwhelms the others. Instinct without awareness becomes impulsivity. Silence without expression becomes isolation. Movement without grounding becomes escape. Shadow without integration becomes self-sabotage. The deeper work is not choosing the right wolf. It is learning how these forces can coexist. This is where most approaches to self-knowledge fail. People cling to identities. They say, "This is just who I am." Intense, reserved, restless, wounded. Over-identification creates imbalance. Growth does not happen by eliminating parts of yourself. It happens by listening to them without judgment. The wolf you chose reveals where your energy is flowing most strongly right now. The others point to what may be underdeveloped, ignored, or waiting for space. Awareness does not ask you to fix everything at once. It asks you to notice patterns as they unfold in daily life. Watch how you respond to tension. Do you react immediately, withdraw, move on quickly, or feel a familiar inner conflict? These moments are invitations, signals that a certain force is asking to be acknowledged rather than suppressed. This experiment exists for one reason only, not to tell you who you are, but to show what within you wants to be seen now. If this reflection stirred something honest, write in the comments, "I am ready to integrate what I avoid." And if you want to continue exploring how these inner forces can work together instead of against each other, subscribe. What comes next is not about choosing again, but about learning how to hold all of it with clarity and maturity. Now that all the wolves have revealed themselves, a more important question naturally arises. What happens when these forces stop competing with each other and begin to coexist? Most inner conflict does not come from having contradictory impulses, but from letting one dominate while the others are ignored. The choice you made was not a label, it was a signal. Each wolf represents a psychological force that is more active in your life at this moment. Instinct that reacts, silence that observes, movement that transforms, shadow that asks to be acknowledged. None of them are mistakes, none of them are enemies. They are strategies the psyche developed to survive, adapt, and move forward through different phases of life. The most common trap in self-knowledge is excessive identification. When you define yourself only as intense, only as reserved, only as restless, or only as wounded, something loses balance. Instinct without awareness becomes impulsivity. Silence without expression becomes isolation. Movement without grounding becomes escape. Shadow without integration becomes self-sabotage. True growth does not happen when you remove parts of yourself. It happens when you learn to listen to them. Look at your current life. Where does tension repeat itself? Where do conflicts circle back in different forms? Where do you feel exhaustion, stagnation, or confusion without a clear external cause? These places usually indicate that one inner force is being ignored while another is working overtime. Balance is not neutrality, it is inner dialogue. From now on, begin to notice your patterns without rushing to correct them. When instinct arises, pause long enough to add awareness before acting. When silence pulls you inward, respect it without disappearing from connection. When the urge to change appears, question whether it comes from growth or avoidance. When the shadow surfaces, observe what it wants to teach rather than push away. Wholeness is not achieved in one moment. It is approached every time you recognize a part of yourself without judgment. You do not become integrated by forcing harmony. You become integrated by allowing complexity. This experiment was never about finding the right wolf. It was about recognizing which one has been leading unconsciously. Once seen, it no longer needs to control. Awareness creates choice. Choice creates maturity. If you feel that this reflection helped you see yourself more clearly, write in the comments, "I choose awareness." Not to explain yourself, but to make the process conscious. Sometimes naming an inner movement helps another person recognize something they were not yet able to see. And if you want to continue exploring these inner patterns with depth and honesty, subscribe. This journey is not about becoming someone else. It is about learning how to walk alongside everything you already are, with clarity, respect, and intention.